Welcome to the Content Podcast, conversations with Silicon Valley's creatives. I'm Daniel Garcia, your host and the cultivator of Content Magazine, published by SV Creates. This episode of the Content Magazine podcast is brought to you by Bonfire, a Silicon Valley digital agency building elevated websites for ambitious brands. Find out more about Bonfire at bonfire.com.
Hello.
Today we talk with Doug Hughmanick. He's the founder and the creative director of ANML Agency. Hey Doug, this is Daniel. How you doing?
Hey Daniel, how's it going?
I am doing all right. Yeah, it's good
Right
to
on.
hear your voice after quite a while.
Yeah, it has been. It has been some time. It's been one heck of a year, huh?
Yeah, it has. The funny thing too is I was looking back at the article that we did on you and Animal, which I didn't realize it. That was in 2015.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's like 6 years ago.
Man, so much has changed since then. So much has changed.
Yeah, right? Well, probably on a personal level, right? I mean, you have, how many kids do you have there?
Yeah, so
12?
I got two kids, so I don't know. I don't know if I even had one then. She just turned 6, so
Yeah.
yeah, it was about this time. I was either about to be a new dad or I was a new dad, and
Yeah.
it was craziness. So there's a few years that are a little blurry there.
Yeah. So how's that? So now then, so you have a 6-year-old and also
I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. Yeah, two little girls. So
awesome.
yeah, it's just flying by as everyone says it would.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
you have
cool.
you have kids yourself, right?
Yeah. My son now is 20. He'll be 21 in February, and my daughter's 18. And yeah, so actually being kind of like shelter in place in the lockdown has been actually really fun because they've been
Yeah.
around. And they're definitely at the age where it's not, don't have to help them with homework, don't have to,
Yeah.
so
Oh
it's been
yeah.
fun. I'm for sure for you, it's been a little more,
Yeah. It's been
yeah,
great actually. I mean, like I feel guilty actually saying that, that it's been great.
yeah,
In many areas it's been challenging, but as far as the family thing goes, to be able to be at home with the kids and see them and have those,
yeah,
just impromptu moments between me going to grab, something from the kitchen or whatever while I'm working. I mean, be able to, share a little quick moment with them. That's been really, really
yeah.
special. And, I was rarely, well, never home in the day before this. So, that's been one of the positives for sure.
Yeah, I know it is. It is in some ways. I mean, of course, it's like anything when there is tragedy and bad things, but there's always like some good blessings that come out of it. And I think
Yeah.
for me too, it's just been like, what a great time I've been able to have with
Yeah.
my wife and kids,
Hmm.
even though we weren't able to see some other extended family members, but I,
Yeah. Yeah, that's been for sure challenging. The extended family and friends, and so I think we're getting close
yeah,
to having that back though. So I'm looking forward
yeah.
to it.
Now, what about for Animal? Now, of course, no one's coming in. Everybody's working remotely.
Yeah,
What's your kind of thoughts about re-entering? I mean, this is kind of the big question for businesses, right? Is
this is the
do we
big question.
even, yeah, do you even get a space? Do we? What are you kind of thinking?
So I'm actually in the office right now,
Mm-hmm.
solo in this office. It's not a massive office, but it's meant for our 10-person team, and I'm the only one here. And we're trying to figure out what we do with this space. Of course, we've been paying rent through all this.
Yeah,
On a positive note, our landlord has been really great and giving us some breaks. But we're trying to figure out, okay, what's next. The this pandemic has sort of made us, like everybody, rethink the way that we work, and
yeah,
it's opened doors in many ways to work with people that are outside of the Bay Area. We've actually hired two guys out in LA. So
okay,
we've before this we were so hesitant to do the remote thing. It was like everybody
yeah,
needed to be in the office, and we wanted to have the culture was kind of based here.
Yeah.
So, but I think what we're talking about doing is maybe keeping some sort of collaborative space, and
Hmm.
having a little bit more flexibility within our schedules, which is something that, I appreciate myself being able to, have a little bit more of a little bit more flexibility in when I'm
Yeah.
here or when I'm at home, So
Yeah.
that might be the route we go, like decrease the square footage, but keep sort of a home base that we can
Yeah.
have clients and little collaboration sessions
Yeah.
at.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, yeah, it's definitely, I mean, there's a number of things that you have to think of as,
mhm,
the founder and, running animals that,
yeah.
right? You have team culture, you have
Hmm.
productivity, you
Yep.
have, right?
Yeah.
How's it been even for your team with like the productivity during this time? Do you think that has
So,
the staying at home
I mean, the team,
hurt that?
like, yeah, the team has really stepped up to the plate. I mean, everyone has been, everyone's pushed it through this and kind of, taken ownership and responsibility of things that needed to get done, and everyone's
Hmm.
been very productive, and super grateful for that. As
Yeah.
far as the collaboration, that's been tough.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out ways to work around it. There's tools, of course, where you can find some interesting tools, do some virtual whiteboarding, but like our
Yeah.
business, one of the things that we're always pushing with Animal was like, we're an extension of your team. I mean, and we've been saying
Yeah.
that. That's like, kind of the cliche thing to say now, but we've been
Yeah.
saying that for years, like since we started this thing. And
Yeah.
we sort of removed all those layers that you have in a traditional agency, and we have our designers working very closely with our clients. We meet in person. We have workshops. Like we draw on whiteboards together with our
Yeah.
clients in their offices at Animal. We'd have clients that would come over to our office, weekly in normal times for just workshop sessions where we just
Yeah.
hash stuff out incredibly fast. Whereas like, traditional model would be like, hey, let's do round two, round three, round four,
Right.
finalize whatever it is. And you'd have those gaps in between, which maybe is like a week, a couple weeks, and then
Yeah.
you present something, and it's like, oh, this is not hitting the mark. But when you're working in person, you can just agree on things so quickly and just hash out problems. So
Yeah.
that's been one of the trickiest things to navigate. Um, but we're making it work. We're still having those sessions. They're just
Yeah. A
done a
little
little bit
different.
differently.
Would you say is it tricky because it's kind of like the ethos of why like because of the type of agency that you wanted Animal to be? Is it tricky because you're used to it, or is it tricky just because the pure mechanics don't give you that relational aspect, or is it all of them?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, I like you know problem solving quickly. I don't like
Mm-hmm.
spinning on things for too
Mm.
long. I like getting early buy-in. It's more efficient and
Yeah.
more effective, and I like having different you know minds in the room that have different knowledge and different expertise on certain things.
Sure. Sure.
And you
Yeah.
get all those people in a room, and you might come out with solutions that you didn't think of, you wouldn't have thought of without all those mixed minds, and
Yeah.
you do that pretty quickly. So um, we
Yeah.
just I guess we were very used to that. So to just kind of like figure out another way to get that same result without that in person
Yeah.
is what needs to happen. But as you know, I mean, like, Zoom it's just a different experience, right? Like
Yeah.
you can't read the room the same way. People can't just be writing in one corner of the whiteboard and then go, okay, like you guys were just
Yeah.
discussing this over here. Let me tell you what I was writing over here. So,
Right. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a workshop, you kind of have like multi tracks, little like sub tracks happening, and people having
Yeah.
little side discussions. So it's just different.
Yeah, yeah. That's
So
cool. It sounds more like It's kind of cool because you definitely don't think of that when you think of an agency. I mean, like you
Mhm.
described earlier, like, okay, we're going to give you, on X day, we're going to give you round one with three
Yeah.
options. And the next day, but what you're
Yeah.
kind of describing is almost like a jazz session, right? Where you have your musicians in the same
Yeah.
room and they're watching each other, feeding off each other. And I could see the benefit where you
Yeah.
would have, you have your actual like designer or coder
Yeah.
even, and then you have their marketing team or even like
Hmm.
their CEO,
Hmm.
and you could feed off each other in real kind of time with and getting the emotional read
Totally.
on it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then people keeping you on track with, well, hey guys, that's a cool idea. Can we tie it into this business objective? Like
Yeah, right.
creative
Yeah.
team might be going off like, hey, this is amazing for this reason, but like
Yeah.
someone
Yeah.
goes, well, hey, like let's turn it this way, like a little bit. And so,
Yeah.
and we're still doing that. We do it on Zoom, and there's the whiteboarding tools I'm talking about. But I don't think that that is going to go away with the new way of working. I think we're going to
Yeah.
bring that back when we can. Why
Yeah.
and it's why we would keep a space. I mean, we would travel, across the U.S. to do that, and
Yeah.
I think we still will when it's possible. But for the meanwhile, we'll keep doing it the way that we can through the virtual channels.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you think that style, I mean, one of the difficult things is, doing, you know, commercial art, if you will, you know what I mean,
Hmm.
is to be, creative on a timeline and on demand. So,
Yeah.
do you find that the animal method that you've been using helped with that, or what's your kind of way to inspire
I
your?
mean, I feel like it gives you a safe place to like, be creative on demand, right? Like you can throw
Hmm.
out crazy ideas, you can try weird things because you're not coming into this like high intensity
Yeah.
meeting where you got to present this like fully baked idea to all these
Right.
people that might not have any buy-in on it and haven't been involved in creating it. So when you have your clients and your team, everybody has crafted this together, maybe not all of it, but certain people
Yeah.
have heard bits, they've gotten buy-in or they've voiced their concerns. Like when you bring this to life and maybe present it to the next layer of the executive team, you've already got like sort of
Yeah.
a core group of people that's like vested and bought in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it gives you that safe place to do these like off the wall things you might have like ruled out, and they might have never seen the light of day because there was hesitation about how so and so on you know from
Yeah.
this group might react to it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, right? Especially as if you're coming in as like a young designer,
Yeah.
thinking graphic design, you don't realize that even your client is having multiple voices speak to them,
Yeah.
right? So there's
Totally.
business objectives, there's marketing
Totally.
objectives, there's corporate identity, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of
Like
interesting. So that's,
you
yeah,
just hear the front piece of it and it's like, I don't like this. And so some
yeah,
clients will explain why, which is great. And some creative directors or designers will explain like the backstory of why not, but sometimes
yeah,
you don't get that. So it is tough.
yeah. It's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, I like what you're talking about. It seems like such a better method than, yeah, because even the deliverable of the
Hmm.
first round usually where you have your creative brief, you have discussions, you might
Hmm.
even do like the whole kind of like design thinking,
Yeah.
time with them or whatever. But
Hmm.
then that disconnect between the time they dump the creative brief on you, they already have something that your client already has something in their mind. They don't know it, right?
Yeah.
And then when you show up, a lot of times even that first reaction can be just because it's new, right? It has to
Yeah.
be like, oh, there's like warming up to it.
Yeah. I mean, it can either be, it can sometimes be amazing. And they're just like, if you really like have worked with these people for a while, then like you kind of already drive, so you can just, it can all
Yeah,
go great, right? But in a newer situation, or if it's like, it's not fully, it's not fully baked. There's a big benefit of getting them bought in a lot earlier.
yeah. Now your role, so you're the founder of Animal Digital Agency, right? And then now you how much do you actually get in the wheels, and you're manipulating either in Illustrator or something like that, or are you most of the time client relationships, or what's your or
So
just
I'm
payroll?
No, I mean, Patrick is my business partner, and
Yeah,
we both are like kind of wearing all the hats, and doing all these different things at different times, and like less and less am I down in the deep weeds, but like
yeah,
I still will get in there. I'm not, I'm not the type of person that would would say no to that. If the need
mm,
arises, I'll be in the weeds. And
yeah,
I still enjoy doing design work. So there's often times where I'm just like, hey, I want to get in on that.
right,
So I'll get my hands dirty. I mean, it's like why
yeah,
why I got into this business was because of design work. So that's still like,
yeah,
where the passion lies. But less and less am I in it daily, I would say. It's
hmm,
like, if we have a newer project, or we're wrestling with something, I might jump in and throw some ideas in the mix.
yeah,
um, but trying to like focus, a little bit more on the business as of recently.
hmm,
So freeing up some of that in the weeds time to like think about like, you know what's next for animal, what are some of our strategic,
yeah,
objectives, and try to get a little bit more into that, which is, trying to learn a little bit more in that world now,
hmm,
as
yeah,
as we continue on.
yeah. Is that exciting to you? I mean, to kind of like learn the, or endeavor in kind of that new kind of frontier.
Certain
Um,
parts of it are interesting. Yeah, it is
yeah,
pretty interesting to like think about it from the business side. It's,
yeah,
sometimes it's hard because you don't know where to look, right? Like as a small business owner, a small agency owner, I mean, the ideal situation is to be like, hey, let me talk to one of these like big
yeah,
agency founders and just give me all the secrets, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
like that's rare, a rare occurrence that's really going to
yeah,
go down. So it's like, where do I find this really useful information? So it's just like a lot of
yeah,
digging and trying to talk to different people, and
yeah,
so, it can be challenging, but it's interesting when you land on things that you're like, oh yeah, that's a valuable nugget right there.
yeah.
So,
What's something that you kind of discovered in that realm in the last, I don't know, year, 2 years, that was like, oh, okay, this kind of makes things click?
um, I mean, I think like a little bit getting out of my own way, where I was like,
Hmm.
just like, hey, like take a step back from some of the design and trust your team. Like, I've got a
Hmm.
really amazing team, so like let the team do their thing, and
Yeah.
you know and take that time to like think about animal a little bit in a different way, right? So I mean, that's been just doing that alone, like gives
Yeah.
you sort of the door to do those things. But if you're not doing that, if you're just like fully in the weeds, like on top
Yeah.
of every little piece of a project, then you don't have the time to even consider that.
Yeah. Yeah. It just, yeah, that's what they kind of say. Like, if I mean, that's the tough part, right? I mean, you get
Yeah,
into it because you love it, and then
totally.
it's yours. So
Yeah,
then you have ownership and passion for it. But it only could then be as big as what you can do. And then with two
exactly.
kids, and,
Yeah,
you know, yeah,
totally. Yeah, I mean,
it's a difficult
it's
lesson.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is. I mean, you care about every finite little detail of it, and the work that's coming out of it, but you also have to think like, hey, like, my team might want to do stuff a different way. They might have a different aesthetic
Yeah.
that is still very, very good, but maybe it's not my aesthetic. But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
okay, right? Like,
Right.
let
Yeah.
that roll a little bit, right? And take some risk at the same time, right? Like, hey, there might be a chance that this thing might get off the rails, but you don't know if it's going to. So, let it roll for a little bit, and give people opportunity to take ownership of some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Animal's got to become its own animal.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very true.
Um, that's cool. So then, yeah. So then, I remember when we talked back in the day when you were telling your like origin story, how you kind of
Hmm.
stumbled really into graphic design from doing graffiti, and
Yep.
someone tricked you into it.
Yeah.
I'm embellishing it just to make it a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
Tricked you into go to Academy of Art, and then you kind of stumbled into like, wait, you can
Yeah.
create for a living.
No, that's how
Um,
it went down.
yeah. So then, and when did you start Animal? What year
It was
was
like 2012. Was
2012?
kind of when it
Okay.
got rolling, and then when Patrick joined me, like quickly after that is when we really started pushing it hard. Got
Yeah.
some really good clients together off the bat, when we teamed up, and then started bringing other people into the mix. Originally, like, I had some interns and um, designer, like a designer or two, but then
Hmm.
we really started to make it more official and get dialed with it.
Yeah. So you're coming up on 10-year anniversary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that a lot because actually I quit my full time job at another agency almost 10 years ago.
Oh
It'll be
wow.
10 years in July. So it's like 10 years
Awesome.
of doing this. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
crazy because I remember, like after 1 year, I was like, man, I've been doing this for a year now, like, and now it's 10 years down the road, which is,
Right.
not a lot of time to a lot of people that are way past where I am. But for me, it's kind of a little milestone.
Yeah, it's funny. Probably the first year seemed long, and the last nine, right, probably flew by.
Yeah. I mean, those first years, wow, like
Well, because you're doing everything,
you're
right? I
doing
mean, you're
everything and like working, you know,
yeah,
nights, weekends, everything. And I didn't have kids then, so that was all good.
yeah,
But man, it was a grind. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah. So tell one of the big kind of questions and everything, kind of goes, and I've even seen some young people doing like podcasts and discussions,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of this kind of like client bashing, right?
Yeah,
Sounds like you have like are developing like a great relationship with clients, but I was even
yeah.
thinking, my wife and I mean, we've been married, I don't know, 20 something years.
Hmm.
We, of course, love each other. The love has grown over the years. We have history. But even as we're getting ready to remodel our kitchen, we argue over design
Yeah.
aspects.
Oh yeah.
So, how do you manage with clients and with your team the differences in kind of like design directions? How does that all go down?
Well, that's a tricky one. The aesthetic side of it is a little bit more challenging,
Mm,
with like the usability and functionality. You can kind of
yeah,
um, think back to like who you're actually designing for and what's going to be most beneficial to that person, and then you know do a little bit of testing and take opinions out of it.
mm-hmm,
With the
mm-hmm,
aesthetic work, um, you can do a little bit of the same as far as kind of testing it, and have a target as to what you're going for, and share some work with people. It could be less formally than some traditional
yeah,
testing, but see if it's hitting that target that you're going for. Like
yeah,
with your wife, for example, like what are you guys going for? Are you going for like a traditional modern style, a farmhouse modern style, and then
right,
you show somebody that might be a little bit more of an expert in that area, and
yeah,
see if you're hitting one of those marks, and then maybe that brings you to some sort of agreement. But the aesthetic thing's a little bit trickier with
right,
clients. Sometimes they already have a brand that's sort of established and some brand attributes. So, you know, and we'll do this when we do branding too. It's like, what are the attributes that we're trying to hit on? Like, how do we want it to feel? What are the things?
yeah,
What are the emotions that we want to have surfaced when you look at this work? So
yeah,
you get some key attributes, some key words. Get you know some principles that you're after, and then
yeah,
look at that work and go, okay, is this hitting those? And if it's not, then something's not right. So you have to take a step back, but
yeah,
having those guiding principles is really helpful. So you can say,
yeah,
hey, this is supposed to be have a sense of warmth and humanity, right? And we're looking at this piece here and it feels very cold and
Mm-hmm.
sterile, right? Well, that's not the right direction for this project.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you kind of have to frame it like that, and get away from more of the opinions. Like, hey, I really like this for my
yeah,
personal reason. So
yeah,
move
yeah.
those. But with a home, I mean, I've been through two of those remodels. We've done those, and
Yeah.
man, it can be challenging. Fortunately, my wife and I are fairly on the same page most of the time. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I had a fight with my wife for
yeah,
probably almost a year just to we painted our house black, right?
yeah,
I wanted it black, and that was quite a process. But that was definitely, I think, what you're saying. Like, okay, what's the common goals and trying to
yeah,
negotiate, right? Negotiation
yeah,
and having common objective and it's relationship. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And if you can, it's easier to agree on those attributes,
Hmm.
than it is to agree on like just throwing those colors and styles out there, right? Like you can agree on those words, hopefully, and
Yeah,
and then like then you throw some stuff out there and go, well, these don't really match the words that we agreed upon, the attributes that we agreed upon. So
yeah, yeah. Cool. Hey, so would you, with this new kind of world, like the remote working is kind of
mhm,
changed. You've even said that you picked up two team
yeah,
members during the pandemic who
yeah,
are in Southern California. I'm just kind of thinking in terms of like for Silicon Valley, right? I mean,
hmm,
and for this local kind of region, there's been a lot of, and especially because you're in Los Gatos, you're kind of like the South Bay region,
yeah.
and a lot. There's always a discussion of getting quality talent, down here in this area. What's your kind of thoughts? How does that all? What do you see kind of morphing, shifting within that kind of like acquiring talent? Because I think even I saw on your website you guys have three positions, like an intern and some other kind
Yeah.
of positions. Yeah.
I mean, like I was saying earlier, I mean, the remote stuff opens it up to a much bigger
Yeah.
pool of people. You've
Is
got,
there a remote position that you wouldn't, or is there a position that you wouldn't do that would be remote? I'm just kind of wondering, even like where you're
at
at on the
this,
spectrum.
yeah, at this very time, I would say that, like everything's still open to full
Hmm.
remote, but I think, we're coming up. I don't know. We're supposed to be, what are we looking at? June 15th was supposed to be, everything's open in California. I don't know.
Or
I,
so,
I don't,
yeah.
I don't know the latest on how that works for like small businesses like ours, as far as
Yeah.
offices and whatnot. But, I think that it's going to get harder for like a more junior designer to be fully remote.
Hmm.
I think it's possible, but I think there'd be a benefit to having someone that maybe is, for them as a designer to be able to like be around, in person, to like work with somebody that's maybe a little bit more senior, like they might learn
Yeah.
faster. So I think
Yeah.
that would be a position where if they were like very, very, junior, like I would like to have the ability to work with them a little bit more in person, or have the team work with them more in person. Um,
Yeah. That makes
so
sense for effectiveness and right because you could pop over 2 seconds from
yeah,
6 foot distance and
yeah,
look at what they're doing. Yeah,
yeah, and I
but yeah,
think that you also have like, you have to think a little bit more, about, the type of person that you're hiring. Like, is this person
mm,
independent? Is this person self-motivated? Which is what we already hire at Animal, which is
yeah,
people that like, that don't wait for answers. They go try to find answers and try
yeah,
to get stuff rolling, even though it might not be right. They're making the effort to like get moving, right? Like, let's try to
yeah,
figure this out. Let's put some stuff on the table. Whereas if you're the type of person that, needs everything sort of mapped out for you, I think this is going to be a
hmm
harder environment, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
So,
I was going to ask you about that too. Yeah, like what's some of the things that you look for when you're hiring? So it sounds like you're the independent in some ways, or
yeah, some independence. I mean,
skill.
being in this business for, a little while, I can kind of tell if someone's got like the design chops and design eye, um,
Yeah.
and then their experience in certain areas that we work in. We're doing a lot in the app space. I mean, particularly
Yeah.
like now we're doing a lot in the IoT space, which is like connecting apps to different things like ovens or boats or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So if people have experience in the app world, then that's something we're looking for right now.
Yeah.
And then with more junior people, just like that fire, that hunger to
Mm.
do some really cool work.
Yeah.
The people that like have that, just like it's just in them, and you can tell that
Yeah.
like their work might not be to the point where it's super mature and it's ready to roll, but like you can tell like this person's going to
Yeah.
be solid, and all they need is just a little bit of guidance and some
Yeah.
exposure to certain things. So we found a lot of people that are just really like through the years that are just really like good good people, and like and have like self motivation and just like a fire to do some cool stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
then get them in the mix. Um, and a lot of times they come with fresh perspectives that we might have missed because we've had exposure to doing something a certain way. So you get
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
younger people that have some really cool ideas, and that's one thing we try to do here as well. Is like anybody can come into a meeting and say like, tell me as even the creative director, like, hey, like I don't really like that idea and here's why, or I have another
Yeah.
idea, and you know um, so
Yeah.
we kind of open that up to
Don't
everybody.
just be like the person who doesn't like it, but come with a option or
Yeah,
a
come with the
solution or a
solution.
reason.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That drives me
You
crazy.
gotta have
Like, okay.
reasons. It's all about
Yeah.
reasons around
Yeah.
here.
Like, okay, cool. You don't like it. Show me something better and I'll
Exactly.
jump on it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Gotta have the whys.
Yeah. So, what do you do then for your team? How do you manage, like, to keep them inspired? This has been a difficult year for everybody. I mean, I
Hmm.
imagine, there's even the discussion of like the Zoom fatigue, but even like
Yeah.
the toll that the shelter in place has been emotionally playing on people. Either they've really kind of noticed it or they've kind of been denying it. But even in general, before the shelter, what's kind of like your way to help your team be inspired? Especially again because it's design, it's create on a timeline.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a tricky one. Um, we definitely we still share some inspiration here and there, but I mean that's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of have to take a little bit of your own responsibility during these times, and like
Mm-hmm.
search out some of your own inspiration. I think
Yeah.
we inspire each other, though. I would say like that's probably where I would say like our I feel like our team gets some inspiration. I know I get some inspiration from seeing work that the team's doing. I mean, we've got
Yeah.
different projects going on. So like you could see one of your team members working on, on something that's like totally unrelated to your project. And
Yeah.
it could be really amazing. And you go, oh, that's, different industry altogether, but oh, that's really cool. Like, how can we utilize some of that inspiration or knowledge over in this industry? So, I
Yeah.
feel like with a group of talented designers working together, you kind of can feed off each other's work, especially when you've got different projects in the mix.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
cool. Yeah, it's interesting you should mention that because I remember even when I started the magazine, I was like, okay, we have the weekly time and it's going to be this real
yeah,
share, what brings some inspiration. And we're doing it. And, this is going to sound bad, but the the time that it took, the productivity that it took, and the
yeah,
value was like, And then
yeah,
me being such a dude who's always kind of like, well, I just learned how to do it.
yeah,
He was
yeah,
always a little, I was like, okay.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think there's like a thing when you get like even in a business and a person where it's like no, like you're responsible for your own attitude a
yeah,
little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to be, and if you're in this business, I mean, you kind of got to be inspired already by some things. Like,
Yeah.
um, there's some things that should be driving you to keep going. Of course, yeah, like it's great when we find stuff to share, but I don't think we force that.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of good sites that you can pull inspiration from. That do far better than I can sending you links, right? Like you can
Yeah.
go to like some of the
Dribble or yeah.
ward sites, and like
Oh yeah.
there's you know all the inspiration you can find, and like I don't have the time to go like search the web looking for that stuff. So that's like where I would go. I go to like some of the different award sites, or some of the bigger companies that I admire, that are
Yeah.
doing cool stuff, and we'll look at inspiration, for like little like nerdy pieces of functionality on some of the
Yeah.
uh, with some of the companies that we use every day. We'll find little things, little nuggets here and there. So
Yeah.
comes from all different places,
Yeah.
but
Well, do you say too, like, if it's kind of like, I do think in the creative journey too, and maybe you've seen this, I don't know, but sometimes the inspiration is to completely move away from that discipline, right?
yeah, I mean, totally. Like sometimes you can kind of get like too locked into like the standards. I mean, like
Yeah.
if you're doing web work all the time, um, and all you're looking at is web work, like, I mean, man, like it's like hard to be innovative if you're following best practices and,
Yeah.
doing the stuff that you see everywhere. I mean, like you're going to do like a big image at the top, a couple
Yeah.
boxes below that, some
Yeah.
featured stuff below that. It's like, it just gets tired, right? So you kind of got to think a little bit differently, and you can find inspiration for digital through a piece of print. So
Yeah.
there's all
Yeah.
different places that you can find it.
What's some of the ways that you kind of like, for your kind of recreation slash recreation of your own kind of like creative soul? What's some of the things that you do?
Man, like I'm fully recharged by being outside. Like nature is
Yeah.
like that that just like is something that I've learned is essential to like my health, and like my
Yeah.
like my mental state. So like I'm outdoors like pretty much as much as I can.
Yeah.
I'm usually up at like 6 a.m. I mean, consistently. And
Hmm.
if if I can't, if I have the time, then I'll wake up even earlier and I'll get out and I'll do something. I'll go mountain biking or surfing. But if I can't, then I'm just like outside doing some regular old workout stuff. But like that definitely recharges me. Like getting out and going to see different things.
Yeah.
Going down the coast,
Yeah.
like we were in Big Sur last
Yeah.
weekend, and just being there, like just the rugged coastline and just being away from screens and um,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Just it like recharges you, and you come back and you're just way more effective. Um,
Yeah.
so
Totally. What would you say is your top of that? Is it surfing, mountain biking, or which kind of
So my surfing skills are pretty minimal. Like I got back into it, about a year and a half ago. But I've been
yeah.
loving it. Like I've been, just like something about being in the ocean first thing in the morning
Yeah.
when the sun's coming up is like absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm trying to do that more and more. Like I'm injured right now, but I was doing that probably like 3 days, 4 days a week.
Oh, did you get
Get it.
injured surfing or
I did, yeah, yeah. I got
oh
rocked.
no.
I got rock surfing.
Oh
So
no. Oh
I'm
no.
sitting on the sidelines for a minute here. Um,
Yeah.
but that's been fun to kind of like learn something new actually, right? Like I did it when I was in high school. I was never very good, but like now I'm getting back out there, and I'm not good, but like I'm learning again, and like
Yeah.
it's making me like try something different. I'm out of my element. I'm in a place that's like, I'm
Yeah,
not
it's fun.
I'm not like incredibly comfortable on the water. Like I am to a level of just being out there. But like when it comes to like navigating
Yeah.
waves and whatnot. Like that's been like kind of like a new learning experience. So I've been doing that the most, but mountain biking has always been like a big part of, say, the past, I don't know, 10, 15 years. I've been mountain
Yeah.
biking the most out of anything, which gets you back into some interesting areas, gets you like off
Yeah.
the grid a little bit, traveling to bike in different cities and the
Yeah.
Sierras and whatnot has been really cool. So I love that. And it's, great exercise, and you get that adrenaline and the
Totally.
exercise. I mean, both those sports you do. So it's a great
Yeah.
combo, you know?
Yeah. I think so. I can't. Yeah, I can't surf. I've tried it. I just fall down and die and everything
Yeah.
like that. But quite honestly, like just to get in the wetsuit and a surfboard and sit out, like you're saying, at the sunrise in the
Yeah.
water. There's something so like healing about that. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
water in general, right? Feels.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. It's
But the whole
really,
surfing part, yeah,
and then
yeah,
you're back in work, the same morning, and you're like, man, I just had like, it makes you appreciate California more. Like I've got a
yeah,
lot of friends that are leaving California. So I'm
yeah,
sitting here going like, I need to like find all the things that keep me here, right? Like I need to utilize this ocean, right? I need to utilize these
yeah,
mountains. Like why am I like a question like why am I here? Oh yeah, this is why I'm here because of these things, right? Because
it's
the
beautiful.
redwood trees, I can go on a mountain bike ride in the middle of
Yeah,
January and it's 72 degrees out under the redwoods and beautiful. So the
yeah,
ocean like just strengthens that. Um,
yeah,
and it's just it just really like, yeah, like you do that before work. You're like, you have this high, right? When you
yeah,
come back, especially if you had a good time out there, you're like, you're
yeah.
just,
If you hit a rock and crack your ankle, or
yeah, different story.
what's your injury? Is it?
Oh, so I pulled
What?
my groin. I was going over
Oh,
the
okay.
top of a wave, and I decided that wave wasn't for me because it was about to just swallow me alive.
Yeah.
And one foot went with the wave, one foot
Ah.
went back the other direction, and I just did the splits. And I knew right then, I
Yeah.
was like, oh man, I'm done. So
Oh, yeah. That's no fun.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
a 4 to 6 week recovery. I'm on week 3, and I'm like, okay, 4 weeks is probably
Yeah.
maybe I can get away with 4. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty much, my recovery is soccer. I know I played with against Patrick a couple times,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but back in the when I was younger. But yeah, I'm the same way, man. Just getting out there, but
yeah,
then the injuries, like I was just like, okay, no, I can play through this. I can play,
yeah,
So then I'll be back out there next week, like, this is probably a month injury,
yeah.
but I'll give it a week.
Yeah, totally. I've like
Yeah.
my doctor's probably like, man, you need to stop sending me messages because I'm like, if I do this and I do that,
Yeah.
can I do physical therapy? Will that speed up? He's like, the message is always like, you just need to rest.
Yeah, right.
Oh
It's the
man.
worst thing.
So yeah, and the injuries, yeah,
Yeah.
they just keep happening. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I got to be a little
It's
bit
yeah.
more careful, I guess.
I know, but the thing is, like, that's what I do too. Like, even like, get out there and I'm limping and I stretch and start playing, it's better. And then it's like, you know what? If I'm gonna die, at least I'm gonna be enjoying what I'm doing,
Yeah.
And I'm sure you feel that way with
Oh,
surfing
totally.
and
Yeah.
mountain biking, But yeah,
Oh yeah, I got to be doing
yeah,
it. Like
yeah,
I'm not going to not do it. It's just like, it's just now I just know it's just part of it. It's like I'm going to
yeah,
have these things that I do that I might get injured but it's going to keep me happy, keep me, keep my sanity.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Hey, so yeah, I wanted to ask you. So for your agency, the size of it, I think you mentioned like 10. You have a team of 10, or
yeah, I mean,
roughly.
we're like 10 full time, and then we've got, some people that are in the mix on top of that. So we're like 10 to 15 on any given project.
What's your like long term goal? Are you thinking you want to? I mean, do you want to scale that into something where you're multiple sites, or new sites, whatever?
That's something we're trying to figure out now. I mean, there's
Hmm.
pros and cons of both, right? There's pros of being a small, nimble studio that
Hmm.
is just small and mighty, and that's worked out for us pretty well over the past 10 years.
Yeah.
But then there's also the opportunities that come when you've got different expertises,
Hmm.
built into the studio. you can take
Yeah.
on different types of projects, bigger projects. So we're kind of trying to figure that out now.
Yeah.
It's coming up with where we're at, like getting close to 10 years. That's kind of like, okay, well, what should we do next? Do we keep doing it, doing what we're doing, or do we shift? Um,
Yeah.
so it's a question that I don't think I really have the answer for at this moment, but it's something that's
Yeah.
in our thoughts right now, and uh, we'll
Yeah.
hopefully determine soon.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a tough decision, you know.
Yeah, it's complicated. The bigger you get, you have to be a little bit more willing to take on projects that you might not have taken on before because you've got a bigger head count. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so there's that. Um, when you're small, you can be a little bit more selective.
Yeah.
I like to think, but
Yeah.
um, like I said, pros and cons of both.
Yeah. Yeah. What what's a project that you have done recently that you just, of course, that you're not under NDA or anything like that, that you could, that you really proud of, excited about?
Um, you know, I would say like this year we've kind of done we've kind of realized that like we need to use our skills to do something for good.
Mm.
And we started thinking like who could we work with to just do something that like gives back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we had done that book with Jose Andres a
Yeah.
while back, the vegetables book, which wasn't really, like in the digital space, but we
Mm.
had, some connections to like be in contact with his team. And I would say it's something that like is still in the works, but like I feel good about it. It's we're teaming up with his organization, World Central Kitchen, and we've been doing some
Mm.
pro bono work with them
Cool.
to just help them with some of their digital stuff. So that's actually like something I
Yeah.
feel really just feel good about that. And
Yeah.
uh, we'll see over the next couple of months how it all unfolds from like a finished product. But
Mm-hmm.
it's something that I think we're trying to do a little bit more of, like with animal, is like trying to like figure out how we can give back a little bit. We are talking about like even doing an animal store and
Mm.
selling some animal products that some of the proceeds go to like
Yeah.
different charities or whatnot. So
Yeah.
that's been some of that stuff's been cool. We did some sustainability stuff with Firestone Walker, which was kind of in that
Yeah.
in that realm, which felt good. And then we've got some
Yeah.
IoT projects that I can't really talk about because it's kind of
Yeah.
under wraps right now. But those are like really interesting from just like a
Yeah.
like future technology perspective. It's just like
Yeah.
some new stuff. So
Yeah.
those are cool. Can't get into the details on those, but
Yeah.
they're very interesting.
Yeah. That's cool. So then for, if, when you think of an agency now, right? I mean, back in the old days, right? It was definitely cut and paste
Yeah.
and drawing, right? But now there's so much coding and technology. How much do you guys actually do literal coding of things? Or just doing the wireframes and using tools? How, for a, if there's new designers coming up, what's something that they should be aware of in the industry?
So I mean, there's people that do it. There's designers that do it all. Like
Mm-hmm.
they'll do their research, they'll do their wireframes, they'll do their design work, test everything. But like you don't have to be able to do all of those things. You can be like really, really good at doing, one of those things. If you're on a bigger
Mm-hmm.
team, you can be
Yeah.
just, of course, responsible for the UX design or the visual design or design research, um, or coding. We
Yeah.
do all of that stuff, but different people do different parts of it. Some designers do two or three of those things. A lot of our design team is like hybrid, like they can do UX
Mm-hmm.
and visuals.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we have people that do the coding. So
Mm-hmm.
um, there's different skill sets and different expertises for some of those things.
Yeah.
So like me personally, I did coding when I was like first starting out, and it was like
Yeah.
it wasn't my
Basic.
specialty. I was like way more on
Yeah.
the design side. So I kind of just like went down that route and just like fully like just said, okay, that's where I'm going. Like I know
Yeah.
I'm like, the code wasn't really my like passion. So I'm like, I'm just going with I was like, from more of that background. So it just felt natural.
Yeah.
So that worked. I mean, if you love to do a certain piece of that, then follow that love of that piece. Don't force yourself to do something that you
Yeah.
don't enjoy doing.
Yeah. It's always that kind of like debate of like specialize, or
Yeah,
to, versify, or,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's good to have the knowledge in some of those areas. Like since I was, I had to take code classes way back in the day. Like I kind of understand how some of it works, which is a
Yeah.
good foundation. But like, I'm not gonna pretend that I can get in there and like
Yeah.
code anything that one of the people we work with would do. So
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Yeah. Remember those days we have to type in like when you start up your computer, like to access the D drive or whatever it was.
yeah. I mean, I think that was maybe even before my time, man. I was like,
Okay.
I like very rarely. I've used a PC for like America Online back in the day when I was a kid, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like once I started doing design, it was like everything was already Apple.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I remember when I first someone, you know, showed me a computer and stuff like that, and you had to write in like, colon, backslash, all this kind of stuff, right? And I'm a total, like, I don't know what it is, but I'm like the king of typos. I hit the wrong buttons all the time.
yeah,
And so I was doing it, I'm like so frustrated. I was like, oh, this is crazy. And then I was like, I'm not going to use one of these until it does it automatically. And then like Apple came out and like, this is it. Like, cool.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, last question. So then for you, what's your kind of like life mission statement? What's the philosophy that makes Doug tick?
Um, that's a big question. That's a big question. I mean, of
Keeping your
course,
wife
like,
happy.
yeah, for sure. I mean, like, like through the years, the goal with like, animal and design has just been to do like very impactful work and sort of
Mm-hmm.
be a secret weapon to our clients when they need something differentiating, when they need something that raises the bar, like to be able to be the people that do that.
Mm-hmm.
On a personal level, I mean, the things that make me tick are that, but the like some of the stuff we talked about earlier is just like really deep experiences, whether it's in nature or whether it's traveling internationally, like you know
Mm-hmm.
um, that's kind of like thinking back to like some of the roads and kingdom stuff, and being
Yeah.
involved with that stuff is like you know very exciting. So
Yeah.
it's a mix of those things. I'd say like doing really impactful, meaningful work with deep experiences is kind of where I get that's the sweet spot.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate your time and for what you're doing. And I, of course, admire and love your work. And I hope that you have some great experiences with your family and the next 10 to 15, 20 years with Animal.
Yeah, thanks a lot,
Yeah.
Daniel, and I'm a big fan of your work as well. So
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
yeah,
Cool. Well, good. I can't wait to hang out and have a beer together.
yeah, let's do that soon. Thanks a lot for having me
Yeah.
on, and I'm fully vaccinated, and
Yeah.
we can make that beer happen soon.
Cool. Right on. All
All
right. We'll
right,
talk to you later.
talk to you
Thanks.
soon.
To find out more about Animal, go to their website at anml.com.
And let me take you back to San Francisco. Yeah, we can make love in that two-bed suite at my parents' bar. Take all their vodka to the top of the parking garage and Valley Fab.
Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast. Follow us on social media at Content Mag. Visit our website to become a member and help us to continue to tell the stories of the local creatives. This episode's music is Tang by Chris Inman, who is featured in issue 13.2. Follow him on Spotify at Chris Inman and on Instagram at chris.inman, as well as his record label, Orange Label Records.